I am here with Abhishek Singh from Araali Networks. Welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself to get started?
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on the call. So I have done zero trust for a long time. And if you think about zero trust, it started with firewalls becoming center stage in contrast to IDS, IPS. My first company was Packet Motion. Again, tried to build a next generation firewall that did deep packet inspection. My previous company was called Tetration Analytics. It was part of Cisco Systems now. I co-founded that company in 2014. And in 2018, I started Araali Networks, and that's my latest company.
Terrific. So let's talk about zero trust in the cloud. What is, first of all, are people doing it? Are people deploying zero trust models in the cloud? Is that happening?
It's been aspirational. So whenever breaches happen, there's a call out made for zero trust, but it's been aspirational for the most part. People are still enamored, busy with trying to do vulnerability management. And that's the most popular thing. They're trying to manage their posture on the cloud, make sure they have no vulnerabilities. And that's where they find themselves really busy in. And my goal is to help them understand that resilience is a proactive day one step, not after they get done with all vulnerability management. It's something you do upfront along with vulnerability management. And unfortunately, even though the need is there, the calls are there, people are not paying as much attention to zero trust as they should have been.
Is a part of it that well, let me ask you the question: Is there a single solution for zero trust in the cloud, or is it something you have to build yourself with different components?
So let's unpack zero trust, right? So people say zero trust is a strategy; it's not a tool, it's not a solution. So the strategy of zero trust is, again, zero trust is a misnomer. It's not zero trust; it's zero implicit trust. Every trust has to be explicitly stated as policy. So fundamentally, it's about having least privilege policy for resource access. That's a very simple definition of zero trust. So having explicit least privilege policy for any resource access. Depends on your resource. What are you protecting? So the important question to ask is, what are you protecting? And then how do you create these policies for that resource access? So depending on the context, the tools change, the people change. So if you're protecting user access to your corporate resources, VPN, that's zero trust network access. If you're protecting cloud resources, zero trust, it's IAM. And if you're doing workload protection, then it's sort of microsegmentation. So depending on what you're protecting, the tools change, and that's the lay of the land right now.
But it sounds like that's also a reason why it may be aspirational, that it isn't something you don't just like buy one and plug it in. It's you have to create it for your use case. You have to adapt it. And also, it's very interesting to hear the way you describe it, because you're right. It's not zero trust. The way I always hear it is, oh, we'll do zero trust, by which I mean, all this like limitation of privilege. That's what it really is. So you're not doing zero trust.
So a very simple way to understand zero trust is default deny. If your default policy is to deny, that gets you zero trust, because every allow has to be explicitly stated as policy. So fundamentally, it's about policy creation. The tools have never been a problem. It's aspirational because programming these tools for least privilege access is the hard part. So people aspire to do it. It's too hard to do it manually, right? And IAM gets you to zero trust, but that is left as an exercise, as shared responsibility on your part to be able to program IAM for least privilege access. So that shared responsibility and things landing up in no man's land is what makes things aspirational. It's very hard to actually practice it because, again, writing those rules is on your plate.
Right, that makes sense. But do you see zero trust as part of a general cloud risk mitigation strategy? Is it part of a bigger story?
Yeah, so if you unpack why zero trust makes sense on cloud, what you have to realize is now you're running on third-party infrastructure. You're using fourth party software, a lot of dependencies that you have no idea where the code came from. In that environment, you're even more vulnerable than before, right? So in on-prem, you were sitting behind the comfort of a firewall and life was good. But on cloud, you're much more vulnerable, much more susceptible to problems. So the idea of zero trust becomes even more relevant, because the more vulnerable you are, the more proactively resilient you need to be.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So let's talk about, what do you mean by resilient patching? We talked about that a minute. What is that about?
For that, you have to first understand patching, right? So patching means that you had a piece of software that had some problems, and now you want to go and patch it, right? And it's very reactive. Software, again, it's aspirational to create perfect software with no bugs, no security problems, but it's not the reality of life. So you always end up with vulnerable software, and then you go and patch it. It's reactive because for some time you don't know you're vulnerable. Someone told you that, hey, you're vulnerable, go patch it. So you're reacting to it. And sometimes patching is following what attackers are doing to attack your stuff. So again, reactive.
Mm-hmm.
It's very consuming because there's so many patches out there and you are not able to keep up with it. It's very exhausting. So it's reactive, it's exhausting. Resilient patching changes the game. It makes things proactive. So instead of chasing what vulnerabilities you might have, you try to make your software unexploitable. Yeah, my software is not perfect, but how do I make sure it's unexploitable? Again, it goes back to the idea of zero trust, where every activity that my software does is explicitly allowed by policy. So it cannot suddenly start doing new things. For example, if you look at Linux, one of the main things that gets compromised is backdoors, because we are obsessed with guarding what comes in. Going out is free. You pay tolls going into New York City or San Francisco, exit is free. And same is true for cloud workloads. When you have an intruder already inside your premise, whether it's a supply chain attack or a dependency confusion, open source problems, the backdoor out is completely free. And that's what attackers do. They'll send some kind of malware, run some remote code such that they will create a backdoor to their own home and remote control your stuff. With zero trust, you can shield your applications such that they can't do any new activity without your knowledge. And that is resilient patching. You're not chasing vulnerabilities. You're proactively able to patch your software so it is unexploitable. You might be vulnerable, but you're unexploitable.
Is this something that Araali Networks offers? Is this one of your services?
Yes, so we do offer resilient patching and mitigating risks for cloud workloads. And again, the trick with zero trust and these kind of things is policy management. We automate the heck out of it. And these patches are always available for you. So whenever you are ready to put mitigating controls in place, it's there with a single click, go and mitigate your stuff. And we say patch once, prevent forever. So unlike the other style of patching, where you're always chasing, always introducing new patches based on the latest vulnerability disclosed, you patch once and you're done forever. You can go to the beach.
Okay, so you don't have to do regular patch management,
That's not what we propose. Again, it's should
okay.
I not lead a healthy life? Yes, you should lead a healthy life.
Right.
You should be up to date with the patches. But what we say is don't make patch management a fire drill. So you should absolutely write perfect code, keep your software patched, but we'll still protect you. We'll still keep you resilient in spite of all those weaknesses. And it doesn't become a fire drill. So you'll always be in the know if something is being exploited or something is being compromised, and you're able to respond to it, proactively prevent against it. But by all means, please go do your patching.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah. One thing I think that it seems like there's two basic views on defense. One is that you create a perimeter, and the other is that you assume that the attacker is already inside. And that, I think, can be a better approach, because chances are you've been breached probably, or you have a supply chain issue that you don't know about. So if you're basing your strategy on assume they're already inside versus, oh, we built this great wall, they'll never get in, that seems to be a better way.
Yeah. So if you think about the two approaches, right? In one approach, you are building a better wall and you are as weak as your weakest link. One bad link they're in, and then you don't have any capability to defend thereon. So I'm not saying you assume breach because the intruder is inside, but you have the capabilities proactively in place. Should something happen, the impact, it's not a likelihood game. It's an impact problem. It's very low likelihood that an intruder is inside. I admit to that. But should that happen, am I prepared? Am I prepared to prevent impact? This brand impact, there is data impact, there's breach impact. It's not a likelihood game, it's an impact game. And when you're building walls, you're playing a likelihood game. You're trying to make sure there is zero likelihood of something coming in. And I don't play that game. And I'm not suggesting don't patch, let them in. Should they come in, do I have the capability to respond, to be able to be secure, to be able to continue to conduct business in spite of some bad things happening? Can I localize the impact and continue to have business continuity? And that's the power of a zero trust mindset. It's not to invite intruders and say they're inside, but proactively be prepared that I'm able to respond, I'm able to localize the damage, I'm able to prevent the impact of a breach. And that's the power of zero trust.
Interesting. All right, well, great. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. I've learned something about resilient patching and zero trust in the cloud. And I think it will get people a lot further. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, like I said, zero trust has been aspirational. It is deny by default is not a new concept. It's been there for a long time. It's been aspirational because it's too hard. And it's too hard because it's been attempted from the network where the context was missing. When you upgrade the idea of zero trust to endpoint based to application awareness, that is where it starts becoming doable. So we have tried to throw a lot of automation at the problem and gathering the right context, create new controls that makes explicit policy possible. So it's interesting to realize that this technology is not just available, but it's easily deployable and ready to use. So it's something you should give a shot.
Right. This makes a lot of sense, because when we first started hearing about zero trust, it seemed like there was a huge administrative burden that came with it, like all these rules and assignment of privilege. Who was going to do that and who was going to keep it up to date? So if you can automate that or make it easier, then you've accomplished a lot, I think.
Yeah, and again, zero trust, like you said, has been very onerous, very expensive. But when we talk about zero trust, single click, zero touch, no harm. Single click deployment, no configuration needed, no harm guaranteed. So people worry about zero trust that if I put controls in place, it will disrupt business. But now I'm saying, by default, I give you zero trust visibility, no harm. You can surgically start putting controls around what matters. So you're slowly onboarding the journey without any effort, because these policies are automatically and pre-discovered for you. And when bad things happen, you can localize the controls and keep the business running. So now instead of zero trust being a business disruptor, becomes an enabler of business. Now you can take risks because you have the capability to defend. Your defense has gone up. You're not chasing attackers. The attackers are chasing you because they're trying to see what kind of defense he has. And then they will upgrade their game. So they are chasing your defenses instead of you chasing their ways of attacking invulnerabilities. So it changes the game where the defenders can now start winning, now start leading. And attackers are trying to see what is the lay of the land, what has been locked down, what is left open for me. And there's nothing left open for you because it's fully automated. There's nothing open. It's just a matter of putting the controls in place and enjoying the benefits of zero trust.
Right. All right. Wonderful, Abhishek. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Nice talking.